Ooh. Namaste to you, my friends. We're just going to keep on going from where we were last time. Kind of smoking myself out in here. Whew. I think that a lot of people would like to understand where level 7 Teal meme sits in terms of like world politics and the things that are going on. What are Teal opinions on things, and what do we think people should do? I want to do maybe 3 things in this video. I want to kind of define the Teal second tier worldview at a really basic level. I know I've described it in a lot of different ways, but this is for this purpose. How it comes to be in an individual, and then what they should do with that information. I think that's really a hot question that nobody's really hip to yet. The stuff that you'll read in the integral community, in the proper community, the stuff that you'll read might feel like it's kind of circling around the point without really getting into specifics, but I think that we can kind of work that out. So secondarily, I want to provide some sort of statement for what Teal wants and what we should do, and what our political views are and what we want out of this whole thing. And finally, I want to break down a pretty important distinction, which is between what we want for the world right now and what a Teal meme society would do and what it would want. Those are kind of different. There have been some mild accusations, I've commented on them, about integral being sort of leftist or woke. And then there have been also criticisms of it being radical right, or including those people in with them. I do think that people of extreme voices show up in those spaces, and they usually leave pretty quickly as well. It is revolutionary, but it is not revolutionary in a sense that people would be familiar with. The sort of revolution that we're referring to would be like transparent, self-reparative infrastructure and organizations, just a better overall functioning system. We're systemic thinkers, and we're global thinkers because level 6 is global. Level 5 is pseudo-global. They have global awareness. But level 6 genuinely sees himself as a world citizen and a member of the human race. Now, level 7 retains that, but also slips into an identity-less thing. We are indigenous to planet Earth, but that is our body-mind structure. That is our centaur. So I come on here and I tell you, to go out there and do your interpretation, add this to your job and your life and everything, make this a part of what you do, join up with communities. But that seems vague, right? And that is because what we're doing right now is we're just building the thought network of level 7 and hopefully starting to institutionalize it, but the grand vision of it is nowhere near being here. And what we need to do first is get green meme systems and visions and ideas working before Teal would even be possible. So this would necessarily tackle some form of global governance, because we are representatives of the global humanity beings and we are not representatives of our nations. Teal meme generally is not nationalistic. We put the world first, and just like, we would protect our child over someone else, we still will protect our own national interests. But the greater understanding, the level 6 understanding, is that everyone needs to prosper more in order for the entirety to prosper at all. Because you can't just cloister off rich people from poor people. There will be bloodshed when that gets finalized. It's like having a tense band, between the slavers and the slaves. Now, and that thing could persist for hundreds of years or more, but in the grand scale of things, tyranny will not last here. It could result in catastrophic end of civilization, but it won't stand. The level 7 world is a world without tyranny. Tyranny on the globe, on the planet Earth, just horrible. There isn't just these horrible things that make us sad and make us feel like our planet's on fire and dying, whether it is or isn't. But they make us feel really bad about being a human, and they make us question whether being a human is a good or a bad thing. This is really where level 7's global politics views are focused, is the fundamental integrity of consciousness itself, that we are a benevolent force that isn't foolish as well. To differentiate ourselves from level 6. It's not just open-minded, it is vision logic. So I've busted out these two terms, centauric and vision logic. The worldview of level 7 is a fundamentally developmental evolutionary view. It is that the experience of life is an educational experience, first and foremost. We're changing what we are and growing into new things that we couldn't imagine over the course of our lifetime. We don't generally see it like that because it's culturally normal and normative and ordinary, but that is what happens as we grow up in our world. We change our fundamental lens through which we view reality because people teach us how to. But in our opinion, that system of lenses has never been self-governing. It has just evolved into being. It's just come into the picture. And it has never done this with any self-awareness. Consciousness has never been aware of the stages of its own evolution. We learned about biological evolution when orange meme level 5 was the dominant meme. That comes with an understanding of the evolution of biology and the origin of life and the origin of the physical universe. And all of those broaden your understanding of what reality is. Level 6 comes in, and we realize that the way that we understand those concepts are limited by our own capacity to comprehend. That there's always a lens through which you're viewing anything, and that thing was created through a lens and through a public system, and there are things that are hidden from you and mysterious in every situation. So we have that sort of existential skepticism. And the question, is this thing good? Can this be safe? Can we get where we're going? Does this always end in disaster? Does it ever not? Humanity really is asking these questions right now. We've been asking them since World War II, I might suggest. And they've come to the fore as more than just each other in war killing us. We've discovered that there's many ways that society can end here through insidious forces. And the level 7 view is that this is because none of this stuff is self-governing. None of this stuff is it's not orchestrated with any sort of vision, without any sort of vision logic. The internet is fundamentally, the principles of it are fundamentally democratic and corporatist in nature. They were originally democratic and they became more corporatist as there was more money in internet. This would be the domain in which level 7 can really build a home base, is in being a cultural arbiter of what is more evolved, essentially. I mean, it needs to be run through a pitch machine, it needs better PR, but the level 7 role in tech is to be a bearer of standards, of a standard of growth, health, sanity, and development, and to promote vision logic. Let's go over time's arrow here. From the level 7 perspective, in the beginning, our cosmology here, we can say that there's a lot that is unknown in this, and a lot that wouldn't even make sense to our puny human brains with what we have now. But we can say whatever relativistic time that we exist in, whatever time frame we exist in together here on planet Earth, it has an origin in an event which, from our perspective, seems to be about 14 billion years ago, and it can change. It's just a pretty good number for that. So tens of billions of years, and it made molecules. So that is essentially the beginning of time, because that's the origin of all the stuff that's apparent to us here. So as time has gone on from there, what we've seen it to be described in the most fundamental vision logic way, the best explanation for what has happened is that little things, at first physical in nature, or little vibrations of force, developed little rules. And according to those rules, they built more complicated systems, creating molecules. And those molecules diversified with their own rules, creating all of substance, creating the galaxies and stars. This is about what we know happened in that time period. And then in this place, We don't know much about other places, but we know here around this star, life came out too. Like life just started happening. So far we have like two miracle things, but both of them involve those molecules develop into a new system of rules and functionality by stacking together. An organism, a cell, it's a collection of molecules working together. The most fundamental life forms are more or less animate cells. Once it starts moving on its own and requiring energy and having some sort of lifespan, and then it stops doing what it was doing before, then we start calling it this word life, and we almost start to think that it has a sort of interiority here. But it's just the stacking of that same stardust. And I know you didn't come here for this part, right? So we'll speed it up. So the DNA of that life has evolved, and that DNA, just like quarks stack into subatoms, stack into atoms, stack into molecules, stack into complicated molecules, stack into cells, stack into tissues, just like that happens, DNA, the code of DNA, the ultimate expression of the organism, goes through a similar transformation through levels, creating more and more complicated structures that enable it to be more conscious, to be more self-aware, and to have more power to do things in the world. Now, that's not everything evolves in that direction, but time's arrow produces things that have these features and which then come to dominate the ecosystem. And then a third miracle occurs where a new way to make levels, a new memeplex, a new system of memes, it stacks on top of the DNA expression of Homo sapiens. So we have mental systems of comprehending, systems of being certain things or conceptualizing ourselves and our reality as certain things. This is now the evolutionary vehicle. We are not, the evolution of matter and life doesn't matter to the human being in the human being's lifespan. The important thing to a conscious sentient being that's self-aware is now to be more self-aware, to evolve through levels of self-awareness. And the self, in this case, also includes the universe and everyone else. Now, the fundamental mechanic of that evolution is we're calling all of these holons, all of these evolutionary primary units that have interiority and exteriority, that behave in groups of memes together. These evolutionary units we're calling holons, and you can literally see from the Big Bang, from the smallest things inside of you to your whole self, a radical stack of levels breaking out into the meta of that. Now you have levels of your own mind. Now with holons, the fundamental mechanic of the holons is to transcend and include. So a more complicated system, but the former thing that it was is now a component with other, perhaps virtual, but other versions of the former thing. So in evolving the mind, it's iterations of former things that you might have thought when you used to be more fundamental or more absolutistic about ideas. Now, instead of having, I know this for sure, you go, okay, I knew that, but then this came in, and then some people think this, and then the experts claim that I'm a little wrong about this, and you have this like very complicated, nuanced, level 6 green meme way of understanding just about everything. There's a sort of balance from from the entire first tier, going the entire way up the first tier, there's a sort of balance happening between concrete and abstract. And at level 6, we've plumbed the depths of the abstract, and we're able to see things in all the ways that people see these things. We're able to open our mind to all the perspectives that are available. And what emerges from this is a sort of intuition of core patterns of nature, things that just everything keeps descending into. Everything falls back into these same key words and key concepts. And it encompasses the entire arrow of time, this process of stacking holons to make new mimetic levels up to and including you and your life and this present moment. Now, since that is the view, and transcend and include is the mechanic, this already tells you the politics in a lot of important ways. When I say centauric, what I mean is that this thing that I am includes the animal kingdom. I am, as we know, I've evolved from chimpanzees and early hominids, early homos into this one. And those structures, I'm still a structural Homo sapiens no matter what happens with my mind and no matter what my mind wants to be. So we can't transcend the body. This is the centaur. I am this mind that can be and do anything. My body remains the same body I've always had. It's the beast. It wants things. It hungers. It never is satisfied. It will die. It has energy. It has time. It's mortal. This is the centaur. And so there's a natural dualistic issue here. There's a natural dialectical tension of mind and body at this stage. But this stage is also resolving that tension. We're learning how to resolve that tension and become a whole centaur. The centaur is a magical creature. The magic is that we are both the mind, the angel, the human, and we are also the beast, the horse, the body. The magic is the harmony that can be achieved between those structures. We don't escape from being the horse. We don't stop being the centaur. We stop trying to fight between the mind and the body. We stop having tension between the man and the beast, and we start being this integrated, coordinated symphony of various levels, all converging on the highest level, all being directed by level 7. The architect of development and systems, the self-aware, evolving planet Earth, is how we self-identify. Prior to the formation of life on a planet, time has a different kind of meaning. The only reason that time has meaning is because later on we look back on the history of the planet, and it kind of matters when it was geologically. So we have a geological time scale. But it doesn't matter what year it is. To a planet, what year it is doesn't matter. That's a thing that only matters with civilized beings. Years become significant because things can happen in the scale of years that matter. Considering time, considering what in the beginning, what is time, what is happening in reality, the most significant events and the things that reorder what time is are level movements between levels of consciousness, or just levels of reality, by stacking holons, by transcending and including a part into a greater whole of complexity, that every holon at every level will have gone at some point, have been at the other levels and grown into that level through some process. This includes the phylogeny of animals leading up to Homo sapiens, and then this includes the stages of Homo sapiens' social and personal development leading up to what we are today. The centaur sees time or history or civilization or reality historically in terms of time as a development through levels. That's what changes the time scale. And vision logic essentially notices that in anything that you're considering in worldly matters and any sort of academic matters, levels are the actual points of the greatest concern. Those are the biggest events. And in the history of time, when a new level occurs, is the first time anything unexpected ever happens. You can call it a miracle or a crisis or whatever, but a new level produces novelty in the universe. I mean, just look at how much the experience of being human has changed since level 6 came out. We should expect this for level 7 as well. That means technology, that means what you think you are, that means what you think life is, that means how time and physics is. All this stuff is going to have a revolution. So that is the revolution in question, changing the way that we think about what we are to be a more planetary, holistic, healthy spiral of development. I'm not going to break down level 8 yet in turquoise, but that's also second tier. It shares a lot in common. But level 8 is more about the totality of reality, as opposed to, it's less focused on the human story. It's more transcending the human story. But level 7 is resolving the human story. And literally, in the historical sense, if level 7 comes to political power, it will be the resolve of history as we know it, because it will be the end of terrible warfare and events that require intense actions and injustices on an unimaginable scale, which has always been the case. This will be a world that is self-ordered in that sense. Now, that doesn't mean there's nothing to do. That never means that. There's always more to do. The technology that we have now is the sufficient tools to accomplish this if we could get socially organized. This is a fact that could bring all of humanity together. All it takes is leadership from people who see things this way and understand things this way. We understand ourselves to be the planet Earth. We understand the planet Earth and ourselves and reality to be an evolving stack of levels. Our interest and our motives is the health, sanity, and the maturation of that evolving stack of levels. So understanding ourself to be a stack, going all the way back to animals, but also including childish versions of me, and to recognize in myself that sometimes I'm not the most evolved version of myself in every way. We also see society that way. We see that in the present, most modern, most preferred society that we can think of, it is made up of pockets of lower levels that, if left to their own devices, would create the societies that were characteristic of those lower levels. So amber meme left without the rational orange meme constitution, checks and balances, due process, and all this, amber meme would go right back to being feudalistic, racist, theocratic, authoritarian. And so that there will always exist between amber and the higher levels that tension, because while they were expertly, amazingly convinced by orange meme in the various revolutions, when we became constitutional democracies, orange meme made a deal that worked with level 4 amber meme to create a nation that would facilitate the entire stack at that level, at the level of level 5. A rational document and agreement governed the people, and it was understood that for this democracy to work, people would require education. And there would have to be a separation of church and state. This is to prevent the backsliding to amber meme, because being educated in science, in history, will tend to bring people up to level 5, and that will produce the democracy that we produced. So of course, level 7 embraces that. No, we can't go sub level 5. So we are not okay with breaking the Constitution. We are not okay with pre-constitutional notions. We are not racist. The Constitution is not racist. So anything of that nature that's not integral, we recognize that as like level 4 and under. What we're trying to do is to give those levels better outlets and better narratives that aren't self-contradictory. Because their traditions, the traditions that they come from, the things that they supposedly believe in, offer them pathways to reasonable understandings of their beliefs. And those are suppressed because amber meme suppresses post-amber meme. Okay, so that's all very simple. Now what about like woke stuff? What about level 6? What about the radical left? Level 7 recognizes that as a problem and as an expression of something important. It is definitely something that needs to be dealt with, but it is also a rapid change and is not considered a major problem. The descent to amber meme is a major problem. Global catastrophe from other amber meme forces is a major problem. The woke left getting weird, homelessness and immigration and things that you associate with this radical left as though they were like these uncontrolled contagions on the world. These are minor issues. These are minor social issues that, yes, I do agree that like some policies swing too far, almost as though these won't be punished by the folks on the other side. So that just isn't a good outcome. Unfortunately, change can't happen as rapidly as the left wants it to happen in the right. It's not possible to do it that fast. So as they adapt, when new things come out like transgenderism, it's going to be the same thing as AIDS all over again. It's going to be that whole fight. And it's going to happen over and over and over again as we more rapidly learn about what we are and what mental health is and what gender is and what all these things that are unquestionable absolutes at amber meme. So that's that tension. And that tension is a very, very minor social issue that can be corrected at level 7 rather easily. And the primary obstacle to getting there is being fixated on those really hard line level 6, ivory tower, credential bearing, identity politics, all that stuff, all that vibe, all that energy is totally in the way of level 7 taking a leadership role in the very things that level 6 wants. Just absolutely smart compassion, smart world safety and health, and ecological sustainability in a truly scientific context. And yeah, certainly global governance, probably of a kind that hasn't been seen before. And this must be a popular thing it must be popular in many nations, and there must not be much social resistance to it. But just basic stuff like no torture camps, no concentration camps, we have to fix the ecosystem, and we have to figure out what that means, and we have to keep water healthy, and we have to, really basic, maybe even include now like asteroid collision and thinking forward and AI prevention. I mean, all these things really need to be handled on a global scale when you think about it. Like almost all the major issues that are really challenging to the entire planet and our continuation as a species require some sort of global governance. That doesn't mean a group that sends down troops and police, to make sure everyone, when people get speeding tickets. I mean, we're just talking about the major problems that the world faces today could be handled by global cooperation. In order to achieve that, we need to achieve more global partnership. In order to achieve that, we need to not be dirty, vicious scumbags. So moving toward that's what the resistance is to. That's what we're trying not to do as the nation as a whole. From an evolutionary perspective, local governance is not going to beat out non-local governance. The idea is planetary governance and how to move more in that direction. And it's clear that it's through greater and greater partnership and dissolution of boundaries among the allies that you currently have, and demonstrating the rewards of that and clearly trumping everyone else in terms of what you've achieved. This is exactly how level 5 worked with democracy and the incredible wealth that it produced through capitalism. And so then, are we capitalists? Is level 7 capitalist? Capitalism is about level 5. In level 6, you see a move toward more socialistic policies to suggest that if capitalism produces sufficient wealth, we might want to move some of that money from the ownership of the means of production to the people who are really suffering on the ground. But because wealthy people have more power and influence, we're doing the opposite of that and giving more and more rewards to the wealthy, to the point where the amount of wealth that certain individuals own is like an impossible abstraction to comprehend. And the danger that poses to all nations and all people is inestimable. It can also produce good things, and don't get me wrong, that is also a possibility. But when there is a thing that can be just as dangerous as a hostile superpower, it is a thing to be taken seriously on a global scale. And so any sort of level 7 governance would first and foremost, we would be self-critical, and we would have to look at and break apart do we have things that are above our own governance? Do we have institutions in our own government which are counter to the Constitution or the will of the people? And we would have to organize our country in a way that promoted not only the local interests, but also in displaying that we are an ethical people that are not corrupt in our government. And we've moved further and further from that, both in our own opinion and in the actual fact of the matter. The best way to assure a global civilization of peace and harmony would be to first and foremost be recognized as an extremely ethical country that is willing to endure sacrifices to ensure the health and prosperity of its own people and the other people that are allies. It stands to reason from all that level 7, seen from the lens of today's dialogue, would probably be seen as moderate liberal, and sometimes moderate conservative, but usually liberal. The main thing that we would all kind of say in common is that definitely some leftist forces, some of the elements in society are pushing too fast into the weird and the unknown. That's not a criticism of mine, I'm all about it. But that is alienating your countrymen, unfortunately, they are still bigoted and hostile towards whatever, or maybe they're right. We the test of time hasn't really borne out a lot of this stuff, and nor has science, and they may be right that we need to put the brakes on some of that like revolutionary change. Just to suggest that if we're really just focused on the world not falling apart, we could chill out on pushing those things in favor of just like a more centrist, moderate, like everyone's happy with this kind of deal. The internet has also created, with a little bit of a delayed effect, this explosion of level 3 and level 4 cultures coming together on local and global scales, coordinating with one another in unforeseen ways. That too is a developmental tension. It's something we've never seen before. We will adjust to this. We will learn to get information. All the ways that we get information have been changing constantly, so we're bad at it. This will develop. I think that a lot of this hysteria that we're in today, if we survive it, will be seen as just that. It was a period of hysteria caused by technological change. And we will revert back to being grumbly with each other, but not ready to brawl out in the streets and screaming F word at each other and firing and imprisoning one another in some cases on certain sides, right? That is amber meat and criminal in a level 5 civilizations. And so it's level 5's responsibility to bring the criminals to justice in that case. But also, in the case of non-criminals, and there are so many people who would very quickly turn to brutal means for their ideology. This is simply a fact of lower levels that will always exist and that will always be there. And it's chilling about our nature that we are this way. So our goal is not to eliminate the fact that if you let people be racist, people will be racist. It's more to just be the parent and not allow racism to happen in the public spaces, to have systems of self-governance that make these things self-evidently embarrassing to do, as was the case for many decades in the last century. So I was trying to give sort of my own definition of what the sort of third eye vision logic notion, descending on the cardinality of perennial wisdom, of eternal truths. It's a thing that penetrates every moment. If you're doing level 7, you feel it all the time. You feel this sort of symphony of levels playing at you and barking at you and doing all the things that all the levels do as a symphony of levels, as a sort of... Colors is a great analogy. It's like a palette of colors, applied to everything you're experiencing. So imagine, level 4 reads something. They read it very literally, and they usually kind of like read it very technically, like literally and technically, concrete literal, right? And then orange meme, when they read something, they're able to kind of make abstractions, and it's more possible to suggest things in the writing and to make them kind of do some of the homework in their own head. And they're more self-aware of the mechanics of writing being used, so they're less likely to fall for gimmicks or like sensationalism or self-aggrandizement, like psychological tricks in the writing. Rational is suspicious of those. When level 6, when sensitive green meme, multiculturalist, postmodernist, when they read... they're naturally comparing this with every other example of things like that exist and counter truths, and they're thinking about what the writer was going through or thinking as they were like, what are the conditions that produce this work? And they're thinking about like what influence this work has on the social system and why it ended up with me in the social system. So all the quadrants are sort of just trickling, and just it's sort of an intuitive thing. It's just kind of in the corner of your mind because you're aware of all these different lenses. So when you read something, it doesn't just suggest itself, it actually suggests the entire rich tradition of things of its nature and things that might even seem just very laterally connected. So that's kind of the level 6 way of reading and thinking. Level 7 thinking, it's very much like level 6, and it's very much like all the levels before it, but it adds this dimension that certain things are kind of prismatic. All the different variations seems to converge on some central dividing mechanisms, on some central... There is a cardinality to reality. There's several ways of approaching the cardinality of it, and this is what we're focused on in level 7. So that would be like, reading in a vision logic sense, you would be finding traces of transcendence and ultimate beauty in the things that you're reading, or if not, you're gravitating away from things of that nature. And so then you have more like synchronistic things, and you have like an intuitive worldview and lifestyle because you're gravitating away from things that don't have that kind of universal convergence and universal concordance and universal vibing. You kind of look for those transcendent vibes in things. You look for things that stick out as remarkable or exceptional, and you see those things more clearly and you recognize them more. That's what I would call vision logic. Compared to non-vision logic as a level, compared to the levels before it, it's very much in concert between its emotions and its physical sensations and its environment and the tradition of humanity and history and what every creature and every plant means about everything. Flex and flow, transcend and include are like the four kind of things to associate with level 7. It's all of these different modalities coming into a sort of rhythmic convergence with one another. All the chaos of postmodernism comes to have a certain pattern to it. And this pattern, according to me, according to someone from level 7, let's say, is an evolving stack of levels that resembles what we're talking about with the altitudes model. And that's an actual view of reality. So that applies directly to politics, and we see the political structure as a particular stage with influence from other stages, and all the stages exist within that stage. So within our national democratic orange meme nation, we also have a relationship to various forms of global governance, which are our negative and positive relationships with other nations. And in our case, we're very big on global governance, whether you call it that or not. Oftentimes it's just warfare or giving aid. So we have a connection to level 6, and we consider ourselves that level 5 nation. That's just by the way we talk because we're at level 5. We are citizens of Earth. We are the people of Earth. We're Earthlings. We're the conscious dust of planet Earth. We're the animals of planet Earth. That's what we are. That's level 7 self-identity. That's how we think of ourselves, and that's how we make decisions. We want to reduce the suffering of people on Earth, not just the people in our nation. But in our nation, we also have various amber meme groups, various tribes, various organizations, various corporations, which may be, more properly level 5. But these interests can create political parties. They can create political interests, and those fight against each other within the context of a nation. Now you have domestic kind of tensions. Those are an amber meme occasion. Those are amber meme kind of infighting. And of course, there's communities and community interests and community history. You have your level 5 indigenous tribes of New York City and the Australian outback. Everywhere you go, there's indigenous people there. And all of this has to behave symphonically as a centauric planet. It all has to be in concert. You can't just suppress levels you don't like. They all have to have some sort of outlet and some sort of guidance and some sort of structure that allows them to function and thrive. And that's what's really missing in our country, at least. In the world where I'm not being shot at, I'm not being starved yet, these are the sort of problems that we're having, is our internal tension between the beast within us and the angel within us. We are the centaur. We have not yet tamed the beast. The beast isn't happy with us. This is what we have to do, as we are parents of the planet Earth, and we have to bring the dominant powers of the Earth and the dominant infrastructures of our social world to a point where everyone is behaving well enough that we can move forward with a genuine Teal meme infrastructure and agenda, which is something we all would want. So basically, the goals of Teal meme in terms of politics are twofold. It is to assist with the lower levels. That's like the main thing that needs to happen first. But we will get into that later. Today, I mostly just wanted to cover Level 7's worldview and its relationships to existing worldviews today. I think that's a good kind of starting point for talking about the global situation. But I think that this would be a fascinating thing for us to discuss together, for Teal Meme to discuss what sorts of policies would we recommend that would be like genuinely new, and what kind of suggestions could we bring to the table to handle some of the world's problems from a Teal Meme level. Most of the solutions, as usual, come from actually implementing solutions from lower levels. As in any kind of mimetic level revolution that's just emerging now, the place where that really occurs is in communities of those individuals. That's where the sort of framing of manifestos and constitutions takes place. But that requires a certain degree of empowerment first. So those communities need to grow and to find places of power and influence, more before the implementation of that would be necessary. But perhaps in devising in helping to kind of pioneer some of those principles and ideas, we could help to bring energy to these discussions. So thank you for being here with me. Namaste to you all. Spirit within me recognizes spirit within you. Let's give ourselves a little kick in the butt, and we're going to move forward, and we're going to do our best, and we're going to do amazing things, and we're going to have sweet dreams.